Hey friends, Happy New Year. 2025, how does it feel? What a gift to have these lines in the sand every year where we get a chance to reevaluate, ask a bunch of big questions, and set fresh intentions. I'll take it. I'll take any of that kind of visionary energy. I want to drop into it every year. This episode is called Reintroducing Yourself. I'm weaving together a life update on what's been for me a year of brave changes. And I'm pulling out of that 7 questions for you to ask yourself for 2025. First, some announcements and invitations. The Visionary Circle. I talked a little bit about this in last week's podcast episode. This is a new element of the Visionary Volume 1 Dream Year course that I'm offering this year, starting January 8th. It is going to be a small mentorship group that's going to meet online once a week for an hour. It is going to be a support group for you to be radically honest, first, deeply brave. What are your bravest dreams? And radically honest about, as you are building a map toward those dreams, what are the obstacles that you run into? What are the habits? What are the limiting mindsets that you run into? To have a group that is confidential and that is mutually committed to each other's thriving. I'm so excited to offer this. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it at the end of the episode, but you can find out about it at nicolemeline.com/visionary. Also, I'm hosting a Costa Rica retreat this year on February 28th through March 4th. It's going to be 5 days of really beautiful practices, movement, meditation, altar practices. Some of them are going to be in a yogashala. Some of them are going to be on the beach in my favorite beach town in Costa Rica of Nosara. So you can find out about that at nicolemeline.com/altarjourneys. And then I also want to invite you to nicolemeline.com/programs. All of these links are linked for you in the show notes. There's a few resources for you there that are particularly important for this time of year, particularly relevant. I have 2 resets, full body and spirit resets. One of them is a 4-week reset called Energize. That's going to be a deep dive on your nutrition. But we're broadening the definition of nutrition. We are absolutely including what we all understand as nutrition, how we're eating, and how to up-level all of that for your optimal energy, but also your nutrition, all of the inputs of your life. So that definitely includes, what are the thoughts that you have on loop? What is your mindset toward your body? So Energize is as much about guiding you through a recomposition body journey. So if you want to build muscle, if you want to burn fat, if you want to make sure that you're fueling your body in a way that is going to give you the most energy, support your immune system, all of that. But also, it's going to be a journey of you falling in love with your body, working with your body as an ally rather than against your body as an enemy. So that's Energize. That's the full-bodied 4-week reset. And then Ignite is a taste of that. It's a 7-day reset. And you can find both of those at nicolemeline.com/programs. And then, of course, I want to invite you to the Altar membership. There's a free trial that you can dive into at nicolemeline.com/altar. So however it is that you want to recharge yourself, reignite your wellness, up-level your nutrition, especially as we move into this new year, lots of resources for you. Every now and then, we have to reintroduce ourselves to ourselves and to each other. Because whether we are collaborating with it or not, we're always in a process of becoming. We are both being and becoming. I love Esther Perel's great line about marriage. If you marry, you will have many marriages in your life, and sometimes they'll be to the same person. She's acknowledging that our lives are a journey of personal evolution. We're constantly learning and having new experiences and being shaped and reshaped by them. And that's going on underneath the surface of ourselves and of our relationships. And that's why we can have the experience in relationships of growing apart, of feeling like we've become strangers to each other, or waking up one day and realizing we are a very different version of ourselves than we've previously been. Different beliefs, different priorities, different dreams and desires. So we have to periodically reintroduce ourselves and say, this is who I am now. This is what I believe. This is what I want. This is the shape my work is taking. What a great question to ask your partner or your friend. Who are you these days? You know how your phone shows you random flashback photos each day that might be from 15 years ago? They can seem like another lifetime ago. I look at some of those and think, that was 3 Nicoles ago. Different versions of myself. My work, my beliefs have unfolded since then. It's such a good feeling to be engaged in this practice of growth, to be holding our life with an open hand, even as we are refining our vision, to know that the only constant is change. And we can choose to collaborate and be intentional about that change, about how we're dancing with what life throws at us. This time last year, I went through the Visionary Volume 1 Dream Year course, along with many of you. You can find it at nicolemeline.com/visionary, where we go through the 12 spheres of our lives. And I'll just give you a preview of what some of those spheres, those 12 spheres are. Actually, I'll just tell you all of them. So I'm sure there's more than 12. I always love asking people what are some of the other spheres of their lives beyond these 12. But one is your body. So your physical life in your body, your goals in relationship to your body, training, changes you want to make to your body, how you want to care for your body. Another sphere is spirit, your spiritual life. Another sphere is mind, your intellectual life. And such a big one, community. What does your communal life look like? Romance, a whole sphere unto its own. Family, the sphere of your family life. Nourishment. So yes, food, how you're nourishing yourself, but all of the inputs of your life. Economy. And I phrase it that way because yes, it includes finances, your money, your relationship to money, a huge sphere of our life. But when we think about it as economy, we're also bringing attention to how that money, how those resources are flowing through us, not just to us, but through us. And what are our beliefs about how resources flow to us and our trustworthiness? How trustworthy are we to ourselves in being able to be a channel for those? Digital engagement. In this year of 2025, this is a massive part of our lives when you look at how much time you spend on your screens, when you just get that screen time report every week. Your work, obviously, huge sphere. I really think of that in the larger category of your creativity. What are you creating in the world? And then one of my favorites, celebrations and ceremonies. How are you becoming intentional? We're going to talk a lot about this in our next episode. How are you becoming intentional about the kinds of moments of integration, the ceremonies, the gatherings, the communities that you're forming? The Visionary Circle is for sure going to be one of those intentional communities. And then the last sphere, adventure. So what are your dreams for adventure this year? So in saying each of those 12 spheres, I hope that you started to get little flickers of vision for what would you dream for your body, for your mind, for your spirit. Well, last year when I went through that process with you, as I do every year, I started to really sense that in some of those spheres, they weren't working. Those spheres were not working in the way, they were not growing in the way that I wanted them to. They weren't aligning with my vision. And I'll read you something that I wrote on Instagram this summer on my journey up until that point, just to catch you up. 4 years ago, I left New York City for wilderness, an open-ended road trip along the Rocky Mountain spine of this country, Montana to New Mexico, looking for home. I hadn't been to New Mexico for 15 years, and I rediscovered its sweet, humble, fierce beauty. Santa Fe, which means holy faith, called to me. This ancient crossroads of artists, mystics, misfits, especially misfit saints and indigenous communities. At 7,000 feet, real mountains, real winters, and also abundant sunshine. The way opened quickly. After just 5 days there, I bought my first home, a modern adobe in the Sangre foothills, looking out to the volcanic Jemez Mountains. I called it Refugio del Volcan, refuge of, not from, the volcano, refuge of the volcano. I wanted to be shaped by the ferocity of that place. And I was. I met rattlesnakes and tarantulas on my patio, magpies. I fell asleep every night. I'll never forget that first night falling asleep to the howling of coyotes and crickets. Every night, every morning, this hum of insects that would start to get louder and louder and louder. I planted a garden and over 200 plants and trees and had this whole journey of learning about the native plants of that area, which is a surprisingly fertile area. I was adopted by a stray wolfish pup beyond my wildest dreams, my soul dog, Everest. And when I question that time, I have more reasons why I'm grateful for having spent that time in New Mexico. But the moments I do question it, he's my absolute certainty that I was meant to be there and to find him, to be found by him. I learned through trial and error to navigate a new community, to stand in my power as a woman in what is an often machismo culture. And I found rich friendship with the contemplative, visionary creators that Santa Fe attracts. A lot of artists who are very clear on what it is that they're here to create and less interested in being in the kind of artistic marketplaces that some of these bigger cities are. New Mexico is all expanse. Low adobe buildings bow to the biggest sky that does things I've never seen it do anywhere. Sagebrush mesas reach forever. Santa Fe is a great corn mother, coursing with feminine energy, a softness and graciousness to her ease and land of mañana vibe. I looked down on my first hike, noticing the pink veins of rock everywhere, and realized, oh, this whole place is made of rose quartz, the heartstone. Everywhere, these veins of rose quartz. I had my most creative chapter yet, altar practices and poetry, podcasts, courses, mentorship, and an overflowing altar journey Santa Fe retreat. It was hard and astonishingly beautiful. And last fall, I started to feel like it was coming to an end. I love Rob Bell's line about endings. We tend to stay too long so that what could have become a graduation becomes a divorce. So I started to aim for a new place, to choose growth, and the way forward began to open. The 3 spheres that weren't really working for me in Santa Fe is the sphere of work. I was realizing that the kind of local element of my business that I wanted to build, I didn't really feel like was going to flourish there in the way that I wanted it to. The other 2 spheres are related, romance and community. I knew that Santa Fe was an older population, and it ended up being older than I thought it was. It kind of had this like retirement, land of mañana vibe, and I still had a lot of ambition. I really had this forward momentum energy, and I was realizing that in a lot of the people I met there, that really wasn't the energy of that place. People were maybe 10 years older than me, and they were just in a different phase of their lives, in a different chapter of their creative work. I wanted to, yes, be in a wild nature space that had close access to wilderness, but I still wanted to be engaged in shaping the larger world, the global world. And I wanted to be in a place that also had that kind of energy, that kind of entrepreneurial energy. But I loved my home. I loved my house in Santa Fe and the little mountain that it was on and the garden that I'd finally been able to create after 11 years in New York City, and it had these three incredible different views, these three different views of mountains. And I was telling myself this story that I'm never going to have a home this beautiful and magical. And I felt like I was kind of floating all the time, like it was all windows and I'm looking out to all of these different mountain ranges. And of course, all of the animals that would come by. And I was just living in this story that this is as good as it gets. If I let this go, it's going to be a step down, right? I'm not going to find something that I fall in love with in the way that I fell in love with this home. And if I moved, I also knew that I wasn't guaranteed more success in these other spheres, in the spheres of work, in the spheres of romance and community. But I was guaranteed a sense of possibility and momentum, meaning if I stayed in this place that was beautiful and it was really satisfying in so many ways, it was so peaceful. And I was having to ask myself that question that we're going to get to in just a minute. Am I satisfied or am I stagnant? Am I resting or am I stagnant? Such an important question to ask. I realized that even though I can't guarantee the outcome of a move and upending, selling this house that I loved, that felt like this dream home, I knew, and for the unknown, I'm not guaranteed that I'm going to get myself into a better situation in any of these other spheres. But I knew what I was guaranteed was this sense of momentum and this trust in myself that I was always going to put myself in a situation where my vision could most optimally materialize. I knew that at the end of another year, if I looked at these three different spheres and I felt the same disappointment or unfulfilled vision for these three spheres, I wanted to feel like I was in motion, like I was doing what I could to create the most optimal scenarios for these. I wanted to feel like I was doing what I could instead of settling for what felt safe. The key to making a change is understanding our relationship to stability or safety versus growth. So any kind of change that we want to make in our lives, whether it's getting up an hour earlier, going to bed an hour earlier, and maybe establishing a more consistent workout routine, or eating in a way that isn't initially going to fulfill our cravings, but we know it's what our body needs. These are all smaller changes, but they're uncomfortable, right? They're going to interrupt the feeling of safety. I'm going to use that word because I think that especially with food, our relationship is often one of comfort, right? Certain foods give us a sense of safety and comfort versus growth. So we need to understand, why are we choosing what we're choosing? What is it about this thing that gives me stability and safety instead of growth? This is a simple equation I want you to remember. Stress plus rest equals growth. Stress plus rest equals growth. Growth requires both stress, change, new habits, new practices. That's all stressful to us, and rest. So seeing the way that muscles grow on the body is actually a really great metaphor for this. The muscle, when you go do a weight workout, the muscle doesn't grow in that moment. The muscle gets torn down when you're lifting all of these heavy weights. Little micro tears happen in the muscle. And it's in the rest, it's in the recovery, the 24-hour period after that workout, that your body actually builds more muscle and starts to burn more fat. So actually, when you're talking about body recomposition, what you're doing in between workouts is just as, if not more important, to what you're doing when you're in a workout. So if you have a workout and then you go and you have a super stressful day, the body is not going to rebuild in the way that you want it to, or you're not eating in a way that's giving your body all of the tools, the molecules that it needs to start creating new muscle fibers. We need that balance of stress and rest. So I bring this up because safety and stability are not bad things to have in our lives. They're not counter to growth. They work alongside of stress. So to be in the practice of growth, which is really what this podcast is about, we need to be in this dance that is reaching for, actually choosing the right kind of stress in our lives and creating the kind of rest, safety, stability that we need to adapt to those changes, adapt to those stressors. A workout is a great analogy. You go and you give yourself a really hard workout, and then you give yourself an easeful recovery that's going to allow for all of those effects to take place. So as I was navigating this question of, do I upend my stable, beautiful life in Santa Fe that's giving me 70% of what I want, but it's not giving me the other 30%. And I'm not guaranteed the other 30% in a different place. You know, the thing about any kind of travel is you take yourself with you. But I would give myself the gift of feeling like I was making the changes that could allow for that, right? And so as I'm wrestling with that question, and I'm already feeling a draw towards Boulder, but I'd been looking at Zillow and, looking at the housing market and not seeing anything that felt exciting for months. And that felt kind of important as I'm weighing this whole decision that I'm trying to make. So I landed on 7 questions that I asked myself over the course of this journey that I want to share with you as we face this new year. And I want you, before we dive into these, to think about, when we talk about those 12 different spheres of your life: body, mind, spirit, community, romance, economy, money, adventure, etc. And maybe you already feel, and especially as we're in the first few days of this new year, you've gone through New Year's Eve, you've had this moment of reflection. Maybe you took the Integrate workshop. The replay is waiting for you if you haven't. This great workshop on integrating the past and orienting towards where we've been as we think about where we want to go. What do we want to release? What do we want to retain as wisdom? So I want you to think about one thing in particular in your life that's calling for change. Like one of those spheres is not working in your life. Probably several of them are not. You're not actualizing yourself in the way that you would like to in this particular sphere. So I want you to think about that. Maybe it's a relationship that you're thinking about whether or not you should leave. Maybe like me, it's a question of moving to a new place, leaving a job, creating a new business, whatever it is. I want you to think about that. Like, have that in mind as we talk through these questions. Question 1, is my fear protecting me from growth? Fear is a neutral thing, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's serving us, and sometimes it's not serving us. So if I'm in, a back alley parking lot at night and I hear something, that fear is probably greatly of service to me, to be alert, to look around. If I like feel something, my spidey vibes go up, that's good fear. Fear is also an armor that we can put on ourselves. Fear can protect us from growth. So we're going to talk in just a minute about identifying what it is exactly that you're afraid of. But it's usually when we're thinking about making that change, we immediately feel fear because we're in the stability of the situation that we're in right now is probably stable in some way. It's a stable paycheck or, of course, newsflash, nothing stable, right? But everything could change in an instant. But we feel like it's stable. And so we feel fears around that. So a related question is my relationship to this known situation, job, relationship, place that I live, one of gratitude or fear of the unknown? Like, am I staying here because I am so grateful for it and I love it and it's 90% working? Or am I staying here because I'm afraid of the unknown? I'm afraid of the alternative. Question number 2, am I satisfied or am I settling? in this scenario, am I satisfied? Am I getting 90% of what I'm looking for here? Or am I settling? And I'm telling myself some story, which we'll get into in a second. But when you ask yourself that question, which side, when you're really honest with yourself, do you fall on? Satisfied or settling? Question number 3, which is related, am I resting or am I stagnant? Rest is good. All farmers know that you have to let the land rest. You have to let the land lie fallow. This is even a instruction in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible to let the land rest every 7 years. Every 7 years, you don't plant a field. You let it rest. You let it regenerate. You let all of the bugs and the worms live in it, and you let all of the nutrients be restored. So we live in periods, we live in cycles of expression, creativity, energy, outward energy, and then we often experience a kind of plateau and a kind of falling, a kind of life getting quieter, the calendar getting less full. So asking yourself this question, am I resting right now or am I stagnant? Is this a season of rest? And that's why I feel a little understimulated, a little undersatisfied, underexcited. Is it because my life is telling me that I'm in a season of rest and regeneration and I'm not meant to be producing everything at the highest possible cadence? Or am I stagnant? Am I allowing myself to stay too long in a kind of like dormant state where I know that I'm not expressing all that I'm here to express? So, and to apply this maybe to a relationship, are you resting? Are you in a season of re-understanding yourselves, or are you stagnant? Has the relationship hit a point where you're no longer deepening with each other, or it's maybe impossible to deepening because you're growing in different ways? Are you resting or are you stagnant? Question number 4, and this question is an undercurrent through all the questions that we've just been asking. What story am I telling myself? Or what story am I living in? What am I afraid of? That question, what am I afraid of, is going to lead you into this overarching question. What story am I telling myself? So I was telling myself a story that I'm never going to have a home that's this special, that I love as much as this home that I have here in Santa Fe. Maybe I'm just too late to find the kind of love that I've been calling in. Maybe the kind of community that I'm imagining or the kind of business landscape that I'm imagining doesn't exist. So these are 3 of the limiting belief stories that were in the background, that were fueling the fears. What story is fueling the fear? That's another way of asking it. So when you think about making this change, what story are you telling yourself about it? What assumptions are you making about how this thing will turn out? Question number 5, this is a kicker. What will I regret more? If I don't do this thing, if I don't try, if I don't make this change, will I regret that more than losing the stability that I'm in right now? What will I regret more? And I knew that the answer to that question for me was as much about, like I said a minute ago, wanting to feel like I'm in momentum, wanting to feel like I'm moving forward, that even if I let something go and I don't get a better version of that down the road, the trust in myself that I'm honoring my core value of growth, of forward momentum, of choosing to collaborate with change instead of fight against it, that's more important to me than holding on to this 70% idyllic situation. What will you regret more? Staying or going? Not trying and keeping yourself safe, or trying and seeing how the way might open. Question number 6, which I think is going to help you answer some of these other questions, is, am I growing toward my dream? Am I growing toward my vision? So the Envision Planner is this great tool that takes you through the 12 different spheres of your life and asks you a bunch of igniting questions that are going to stir up your vision for each of these spheres. And when you have that vision in mind, you've written that vision out. So this is a question to ask in relation to all of these different spheres. Am I growing toward this thing? Because what I've found is that it's way more important to our souls. It's way more important to our sense of ourselves and our trust in ourselves that we are growing toward the visions that we have. We're growing toward our big dreams. That's actually more important than achieving them. Knowing that we're taking steps forward, knowing that we're building that trust in ourselves. And when you are aligned with your highest intentions, the universe conspires to support you. This great line from the book, The Alchemist. It's true. One of the things that we start to recognize when we put ourselves in courageous forward momentum toward our dreams, toward our vision, is that the journey becomes often more interesting, more joyful than it would feel to even achieve the goal. So if you've ever trained for a marathon or a half Ironman or an Ironman or any kind of big race or physical challenge, you're usually happiest when you're in the rhythm of that training. And every day you're showing up to yourself, you're showing up to your dream, that is its own joy. And oftentimes crossing that finish line can be a little bit of a letdown, or the next day certainly is a bit of a letdown once you're no longer aiming at, you have the clarity of that direction that you're headed in. So the biggest gift that you can give yourself is to grow toward your dreams, to be this gracious and soft and kind with yourself, that it's less about the achieving, which oftentimes we can't entirely control. We can't entirely control whether or not we're going to get injured training for a race. We can't entirely control all the things that are going to maybe go wrong during the course of a move to a new place to live or a change of jobs or whatever. But the joy is in the momentum forward. The joy is in the courage. The joy is in the little steps that you're taking each day. Are you learning some of what you need to learn to achieve this thing? This realization that I've had this year that has given me a lot of hope on days that I feel frustrated, disappointed. You're wiser than you've ever been. Today, right now, you are wiser than you've ever been. You know more than you've ever known before. All of the mistakes you've made, all the things you've tried, all the technology that you've had to learn, you know more than you've ever known. You're so deeply wise. You can trust yourself in moving forward. You can trust yourself in growing toward this dream. So I want to ask you that today, right now. It's not so much about, are you achieving your dreams? It's, are you growing toward them? What are you doing today to grow toward your dreams? And when you think about the question that you maybe have in mind as we're moving through these 7 different questions, the decision that you're trying to make, what decision goes in the category of, I'm growing toward my dream? So one of the ways that I stayed in this energy of growing toward my dream as I was trying to make this big, hard decision is I put myself in the flow of the thing that I wanted. So I'd been looking at the Boulder housing market. I wasn't seeing anything that was calling to me. That felt not right to give up this home that I loved for a total unknown. And so this is a principle for every single thing in your life that you want. Put yourself in the flow of it. If you don't know quite how to get there, put yourself in the flow of it. So I went up to Boulder a number of times last winter. And especially I went up at the very beginning, at the very end of March. And I remember I was driving up and I'd been in a really good work rhythm at home. and it was still winter. It was like very cold winter. There was a big snowstorm on the horizon. And I was asking myself, like, why am I doing this? I don't have a house to go look at. I don't have like clear vision, but my soul was telling me, go up there for 2 weeks, like spend some time there, put yourself in a position where something could happen to you. Put yourself in a position where the path can unfold clearly. And sure enough, within days of arriving, the dream home appeared that was nothing like anything that I'd seen. As soon as I caught a glimpse of that, as soon as I saw the alternative and the fact that there are, you need to hear that loud and clear. There are incredible alternatives to the good that you are already in. I could open my hand and I could let go of the safety and the stability. And I drove home from that whirlwind 2 weeks with a new home, but also with this kind of surprising clarity that, oh, I want to sell. I'm ready to sell. Let's do this. Like clean break. Another way of asking, am I growing toward my dream? Is my vision more likely to manifest here or there? So when you're facing this kind of a decision, is my vision more likely to manifest here or there? Because we know we can't control the outcomes. Part of the sparkle of romance and friendship and community and business, and part of why I do the business that I do, is that it's very relationally based. Part of the magic is that I can't control it. I can't architect it. There's this element of serendipity, and I want that, right? So I can't control the outcomes, but I want to feel like I've optimized for the outcomes that I want. I want to feel like I put myself as much in the flow as possible. So is your vision more likely to manifest here or there? And one other sub-question to, am I growing into my dreams? Am I growing toward my dreams? Is, how am I practicing courage? Do you have a practice of courage? That is how I define what altar workouts are. It's practices of courage. They're practices of courage. Interval training, high intensity interval training, where you're going hard and then recovering, usually not quite as long as you'd like to, and then going hard again, and then going hard again, is that it's giving yourself this practice of going for it, giving yourself this practice of choosing the challenge, choosing resistance, challenging yourself, and not backing away from that. So yeah, it has all kinds of benefits for your body, but it has amazing benefits for your mind, for your spirit, becoming a person who practices courage. To make these hard decisions, to make these courageous decisions, we need courage, but we need to have the muscles of courage. And if there's ways, are there ways that you can bring in a practice of courage in your life? When you're facing this big decision that you're facing, asking yourself, how can I practice courage here? What is the courageous choice? And am I seeing my circumstances as a limitation or a launching pad? We're all facing challenges, and we get to choose to see those as limitations or launching pads, ways to revise, ways to reframe. So that brings me to our final question. What if I fly? What if you fly? Sure, fear asks, what if you fall? What if this doesn't work? What if you regret making this big, brave decision? What if you fly? Another version of this question, how good could it get? How good could it get? Yes, our scared little hearts ask, oh my gosh, how bad could it get? Oh, what if this rug was pulled and that rug was pulled and this rug was pulled? Okay, I should just stay safe. The deepest, bravest part of us whispers, what if you fly? but how good could it get? What if it could be so good? And one of the practices that I lead everyone in the Envision workshop and in the Visionary course is future bathing, which is meditating on what it is that we are wanting to create, wanting to manifest, and allowing that to transform our body cellularly, transform our nervous system to expand, to be able to hold and contain that kind of growth that we're imagining, to feel ourselves at peace and worthy of our biggest, bravest dreams. And this is very importantly a physical practice. A lot of times we are armored up in fear because our bodies, our nervous systems are actually not even ready. Our belief systems are not even ready to contain the amount of goodness that we kind of like flirt with, right? Every now and then we sort of uncommittedly dream of. But I'm going to ask you to ask yourself this question. Yeah, but what if you fly? How good could it get? When you're thinking about this big, brave decision, how good could it get? One more thing I want to remind you of as we face a fresh start and as you face the decisions that you're navigating, thinking about the past and thinking about the future, I really want you to hear this in your heart. Nothing is wasted. When you decide that nothing in your life is wasted, it's instantaneously true. When you decide that you're not going to live in stories of regret, you're not going to live in stories of wasted time, wrong decisions. When you choose to see all of that as wisdom, like we said a moment ago, you've never been as wise as you are right now. It's true. You get to choose and use, that's part of what we talk about in the Integrate workshop. You get to choose and use all of your past as wisdom for your future. One of the reasons why we don't dream as big as we possibly can, we don't dream our bravest dreams, especially I would say over the age of maybe like 35. So for the whole second half of our lives, part of why a lot of middle-aged folks, older folks start dreaming smaller dreams, kind of modest dreams, is that, or don't really face those decisions that we're talking about today. Do I leave this relationship? Is it no longer right for the person that I'm becoming? Do I leave this place that has given me so much beauty and joy because it's no longer enough? It's no longer rich enough soil for the person I'm becoming. Do I leave this job that's providing me that's provided all of this, all these resources, because it's no longer a big enough container for the person that I'm becoming? As we're facing these decisions, a lot of why folks don't really sit with those decisions is, like I said toward the beginning of this episode, that great Rob Bell line, we tend to stay too long so that what could have been a graduation becomes a divorce. A lot of why we don't really sit with those big decisions is that to make a different choice carries this huge weight of regret. If I really admit to myself that this person is the wrong person for me to be in partnership with, I would have to own that I've probably stayed too long. I probably stayed too long in this job, with this person, in this place, and that's devastating, right? There's this way in which we've wasted our life. And that's what I want you to give yourself the freedom of, the gift of. Nothing is wasted. What if nothing was wasted for this last long, maybe too long period of time that you were in this situation? What if it's possible that nothing was wasted? Then what would you choose? Nothing is wasted. You can alchemize it all into wisdom. So, facing these big, brave questions, some invitations for you. I want to stand with you as you are creating and designing your life in honor of your bravest dreams. The Visionary course, like I said, is at NicoleMeline.com/visionary. I'm going to walk with you through all of these big, high stakes spheres of your life and cast vision with you for your future. And As part of Visionary course is the Visionary Circle. So if you'd like to join the Visionary Circle, which is the small mentorship group I'm leading starting January 8th, you do that by joining the Visionary course, NicoleMeline.com/visionary. If you've already taken the course, there's info for you on how to join the circle. And I would love to welcome you and to be your biggest cheerleader and tough love accountability partner as you grow and as you choose courageous growth. Also, the Envision workshop. If you don't want to do the whole Visionary course, but you want to take, I think it's just an hour and a half, 90 minutes to ask some big questions about your future, about what you want, about your dreams, that is also available to you. You can find that also at NicoleMeline.com/visionary. The replay is there for you. And I'm leading the Envision workshop for 2025 live on Sunday, January 5th. I moved the date a little bit later to give folks some time to get through the holidays. So Sunday, January 5th, if you're hearing this before then, you can sign up for the Visionary workshop. The link is in the show notes, and you can also get there through NicoleMeline.com/visionary. And if you want to dream and restore and forge new soul friendships, the Altar Journeys Costa Rica retreat, February 28th through March 4th, you can find out about at NicoleMeline.com/altarjourneys. And then also the Ignite 7-day reset or the Energize 4-week reset, a total reset for your metabolism and your mindset. You can find out about both of those at NicoleMeline.com/programs, where you can also find out about the Altar Together membership free trial, which is waiting for you. Also, I'm starting to work with some of my favorite products as sponsors of this podcast as a way to support the podcast and also you. This week's product highlights are especially relevant for a New Year's wellness up level. My favorite green juice powder, Organifi. I have a scoop every morning in my green smoothie, or if I'm in a rush or traveling, I have it just on its own in some cold water. Organifi has these great little travel packs. I also really love their collagen and Shilajit gummies. You can order Organifi linked in the show notes using my code HEARTWARD, HEARTWARD, in the direction of the heart. And speaking of my morning smoothie, I throw in some frozen pineapple and ice and kale or other leafy greens, and my favorite protein powder, Kachava. I use the vanilla flavor in my green smoothie, and y'all, I cannot even tell you how good this stuff is, both in terms of its taste and consistency and ingredient quality. You know how most protein powder is kind of chalky and it is hard to stir and it just doesn't taste very good? Kachava is amazing. I've tried so many different kinds of protein powders. I've never found one that has this great of consistency. It's so easy to blend. There's tons of different flavors, and it's also full of omega-3 and chia and flax and antioxidants and adaptogens. So it truly is a superfood. Order Kachava protein powder with the link in the show notes. I would love to hear what this podcast has stirred in you. Connect with me on Instagram at Nicole Meline and at Altar Together. And please, please follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on or watching on YouTube, and rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I read and appreciate every single review. And share it with a friend or on social media. Tag me at Nicole Meline and at Altar Together so we can build like-hearted community. Send me a direct message about what podcast topics you would like me to explore. To support this podcast and your fitness and mindfulness journey, join my Altar Together community and digital studio with a free trial at NicoleMeline.com/alter, ALTER, and subscribe to my newsletter at NicoleMeline.com to learn about new offerings and retreats. I am so deeply grateful for you and wishing us a year of our bravest dreams and boldest action as we alter together.